So, ladies and gentlemen, it's perfect timing to say a few words about the first keynote speaker. He is, ladies and gentlemen, 18 years in business. He has a huge experience, and he is officially a master degree in philosophy, but he won't be speaking about Aristotle or Plato or something else because he is a postgraduate. He knows everything about marketing and management. He comes officially from Warsaw, so that means that he will be speaking to you about something which he thinks it's good, because now he works at Genetec from 2019, and he has great solutions and access to more than 17 countries. He's a country and regional sales manager for leading companies throughout the years, and now he has a great research, because sometimes we forget about the people who work inside the industry. What have to say? More than 1,550 physical long-term physical security professionals who are thinking about long-term things to do in a very short-term needs of everybody throughout the world. What he has done, we have to check it now, because it's my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you Ms. Jakub Kozak, who will be joining us right now online. Hello, Jakub.
Good morning.
Jeszcze Polska nie zginęła. Jak się macie?
That's true, we are really fine. Everything fine here in Poland. COVID is starting to be under control again, so we are optimistic, and hopefully, next event like this we'll have in person and not in virtual.
I thank you for joining us here today. I know that you have a great presentation prepared for us, because we want to hear how is it really throughout the industry, to ask people who work inside the industry about their feelings and what they saw in last year. So if you are prepared, it's officially 1,100 hours in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Poland, and most of Central Europe. So your presentation may now start.
Thank you very much. So let me share my screen. Hopefully the technology will work as it should be. I'm the first one, so let's see. That should be this one, and I would like to hear from someone if the presentation titled State of the Physical Security Industry is visible for you. Can someone confirm that to me loud, because I don't see chat now, so...
It's not online yet, Jakub. We do not see. If you could share the screen, it will be great.
Okay, I think I'm sharing, but let me then...
That's good, because sharing is caring. We're going to tell you in a few moments. Just.
Yes, okay, let me then stop sharing and reshare. This is what happened. What else? Do you see it?
Now we can see it, so please carry on.
So you see the presentation, and what you should see is that's the first slide that you see now, yes? State of the physical security industry. Okay, I see. Perfect. Okay. So first, let me introduce myself very briefly. I'm the regional sales manager East Central Europe at Genetec. And I have a privilege to share with you results of the survey that we did last year. In fact, we finished it in January, and basically the idea was to discuss with the industry and to be very clear with you from the beginning. It was not only aimed at Genetec customers or partners. It was aimed at the whole industry. We simply wanted to know how this extreme and strange year of 2020 shaped and influenced our industry, the security industry. So we wanted to discuss with basically everyone from the industry what are the key challenges, and even more importantly, what are the plans of improving the market and growing the market in this year and all upcoming years. You have my contact details if someone after the presentation wants to hear more about the survey, the methodology of the survey, and anything else that might be important. I'm more than happy to discuss it also offline. So basically, about the distribution, so it was a mixture of public sector companies. By companies, we mean business, we mean corporate, and also retail and banks. So basically, you can see companies or you can see business in the slides. So I think all important end users, all important stakeholders were included in the survey. Just to summarize, of course, we know that it was 2020. It was a year when we started using virtual technology. We started using online tools much more intense than we did in the past. So I say that it was 2020. It was a huge stress test of the system of IT technology, and that's not a surprise that if you have simply someone using the technology and being dramatically more active in the virtual space than it was in the past, this creates great opportunity also for criminals, and in this particular case for cyber criminals. So what was mentioned by everyone, and it was also mentioned by the European Union agency that did a specific survey on that. Cybersecurity was taken much more seriously last year than it was before, simply because we had to very quickly learn to use the technology to the extent that was completely new to us. And as a result, 67% of companies decided to invest in cybersecurity and make their priority to improve the cybersecurity. So that was the first, I would say, key outcome of the survey. Something that was really, I would say, surprising a little bit, but positively surprising to me was that 70% of people responded being asked what they think will be budget for next year, and if the budget for next years will be affected by the pandemic. Of course, budget related for security, because we were talking about the security, and 70% of people replied that they think, and some of them simply know, that their budget will stay the same or will be even increased. So I think that for all of us sitting virtually sitting in the room, it's a great news, because we can be optimistic, and we think that our sales should even grow in security, especially in IT related security. Security technologies, servicing operations. So basically, the security technologies that was mainly used was video analysis, access control, and identity management. What were the challenges of 2020? So according to survey, the key challenges were threats to physical security, vandalism, threats, intrusions, etc. 48% mentioned aging infrastructure, and 40-60% mentioned cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So we could say that the second and the third position is quite self-explanatory, because we discussed that already. Simply the technology, IT technology, was used to much higher degree. It was also a number of cyber attacks, criminal cyber attacks were were increased. So that was also the challenge that all the companies had to cope with. But threats to physical security, vandalism, and intrusions might seem a little bit surprising. Because we said that we moved basically to virtual reality. We moved to e-learning, we moved to e-conferences, and we moved to home offices. So how it has happened that threats to physical security was one of the key, or simply the key challenge that companies in this pandemic year were facing. And when you think about it a little bit longer, more deeply, you see that there is no contradiction in that, because if you have an office, and let's focus on office. If you have an office building, or it can be even office building plus manufacturing site and the storage. So if we do that, would be the setup for a big company. If it's working normally, you have a workflow of people, you have a workflow of cars. It's simply crowded. So the possibility that there will be an offense, that there will be an intrusion, or someone will steal something, and it will be not recognized, is not really high. That's not a surprise that there is a lot of criminal offenses that are simply happening when no one, when there are no witnesses. Exactly the same here. If you have an office and there is no one there, just one or two people, two persons, the chances are quite high that if there is an intrusion, it will be not recognized, maybe during a few days even. So that's the reason why this intrusion management is so important. The only difference is that this intrusion should be now remotely manageable. And that's the key challenge for the technology, and that's the key question. If the technology can allow you to manage your intrusion, even though you are not physically present at the location, at the office. So the technologies deployed in response to the challenge, if the biggest challenge is potential intrusion, it's not a surprise that intrusion detection is the first technology that will be used, and this is what happened. Second case is the remote functionalities. We discussed that it's not only about providing intrusion or detection, but it is about managing intrusion remotely. And perimeter protection. Again, perimeter protection is also related to intrusion, but as we all know, it's also wider. It's also about the video analytics. It's about the video and different kinds of sensors. 42% leverage the existing systems. That's also very important, and I noticed that it was clearly a result of a survey. 42% of security professionals leverage on existing systems. What does it mean? That although the challenges are new, are much more difficult to cope than it was in the past, it's not because of the fact that they are new by its nature, by their nature. They are so important because the level is completely different, and simply the technology that is needed to cope with the challenges has to be stable, has to be remotely manageable, and has to be scalable. Because if we look for instance on the access control, we all seen last year that access control, which is well known to the industry for years, was used in slightly different ways. So we saw that there was a lot of thermal cameras, thermographic cameras used just to screen the person and to check if the person has fever or not. Those cameras, if you remember, they were invented for completely different purpose. They were invented to check the the heat of some security installation to check if there is no critical temperature threshold reached. They were invented also to check if there is no potential fire. For instance, at waste disposal area. And now the technology was adapted to access control, and specifically to access control and pandemic prevention. There was also, in Genetec was the first one that invented that, but I know that there are some other companies doing that, different kinds of proximity report. So you can leverage on existing access control solution, adjust it slightly, and then you can not only allow the person to get into the building, or stop her from entering the building, but you can also check, okay, this person might be infected. We know that from some other sources. So let's check who this person met, in which rooms he or her was present for more than, let's say, 20 minutes, and indirectly we can then assess the risk of pandemic transmission within the organization. So as I said, not a new technology, but adjusted, slightly reshaped and used to cope with other challenges. Digital transformation. What we also saw, and that was very interesting, because we all know that cloud is something that is more and more common in security, but especially in Eastern Europe, we see that the market is quite conservative. And when we talk to some security professionals, for them it's a little bit, strange that, yeah, it's a security system, and why shall I go to cloud? Cloud is not really safe, because I don't know where the physical infrastructure is located. I don't have full control over it, so yeah, I prefer to have it on-prem security solution. Strange thing is that at the same time, those persons usually use private banking and e-banking without any issues, but they are really reluctant to use it for video, for instance. But it's changing, and I see that it's changing rapidly, especially now during the pandemic. So I would say that that pandemic simply accelerated the switch from on-prem to cloud infrastructure. However, we see that what is really important is that people understand that you can also have a hybrid solution. So 37% of respondents, they replied that they are under cloud or hybrid cloud infrastructure. And of course, they, as I mentioned, they said that they see acceleration in shifting towards cloud. 50% of them deployed hybrid cloud solutions last year. So 37 had it already, 50 employed. So we see that it's accelerating, and I think it's just the beginning of the process. So I think more and more cloud will be visible soon in the security industry. Some differences between Western, Eastern, and Middle Eastern Africa. The survey was for EMEA, but we can see that there are some important differences between Western and Eastern Europe. And for Western Europe, the key point was business continuity plans. So they were more focused on processes. They were more focused on some scenarios, how to be prepared for challenges. They were not so much focused on the physical aspect of it. We can discuss why it is the case. I would say that one hypothesis might be that simply their physical security is already on very high level. So it's not now key priority. Maybe the key priority is to improve processes, continuity plans using the existing technology. While in Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa, the technology is not yet on such a high level. That's why it's more higher priority to invest on that. We also see differences in video analytics. So Western Europe, 44% adoption of video analytics. Eastern Europe, 34, so 10% lower rate of adoption of video analytics. But I think when you see the next slide, it's not so clear. It's not so obvious because we see that perimeter protection has been much more widely adopted during lockdown in Eastern Europe than in Western Europe. And the difference is significant because it's 12% versus 39%. However, if we look at the physical security and physical security threats, Western Europe is less concerned on that. But what I would like to stress is that it's also in Eastern Europe quite common that by perimeter protection, also some video analytics is considered. So basically, you have, of course, you have a hardwire installation, you have cables, you have hardware sensors, but you also have analytics used by perimeter protection, and I think that's the case in Eastern Europe as well. So if you combine those two factors, the differences maybe are not so big between Western and Eastern Europe, when it comes to video analytics. So that's the situation. We have also results split by sector. So cybersecurity vulnerability for public sector and private sector. So cybersecurity vulnerability was higher challenge to private sector than public sector. Again, we can speculate why it's happening. I think that it's perhaps more difficult to attack the governmental network than private sector network, especially if we consider small and medium business. So perhaps that was one of the reasons. Building infrastructure that would allow to remotely manage the security was, on the other side, more of a challenge towards public sector than private sector. And deployed technologies, video public sector deployed it. To me, that was a little bit surprising that public sector is using video analysis to such a high level, 43%. But I would say that's good. If this is happening, this is how it should be. Retail and banking just in the middle, and private business 38%. But I would say that if you exclude from private business, commercial, retail, and banking, were mainly video analytics, people counting and cross-line, those kind of applications is used, then it's not surprising because other technologies are not really so widely deployed in private business. Intrusion detection, that's the technology that is used mainly in retail and banks. Not a surprise that intrusion is used by banks. This is also required by the insurance. This is required by the law. So simply, bank has to be equipped with a strong intrusion. So that's what was reflected in the survey. Focus for 2021. So as we discussed already, adopting the cloud and the hybrid, so the companies are ready to do it. They put it as one of their priority, and they are going to focus on cloud. So good news to everyone, even from Genetec competitors who are present at the ANS show. If you have a cloud solution, be prepared because the demand for it will be much higher, according to the survey, than it was in the past. Reliance on cyber resilience and implementing cyber hygiene I'm especially happy to see that because at Genetec we are very serious about cybersecurity, cyber hygiene, and I'm happy that our customers learn how important it is. Unfortunately, some of them learn it the hard way. So, but this is human nature. Sometimes we need to feel and see the impact of our mistakes, and this is only when we start understanding what was wrong, and this is only at that time when we start real thinking process and preparing the procedure in case of company. That's how it goes. Conceiving security operations on unified platform. This is very important point in my opinion. If you see that video analytics, intrusion, and video and access control should be mainly remotely managed during challenging times like pandemic, should be stable, then what does it mean in practice? It means that you should have those systems or subsystems, security solutions integrated with one with another. Uh, we at Genetec believe that it's not only enough to integrate it, it should be unified, and by that we mean that it's the unification is really so deep integration that we are talking about one product. So if you have a system, for instance, access control and intrusion, which is basically the same software, which is the same hardware platform, and if you have video, which is the same platform, then you don't need to integrate it because simply you have already a solution which is multifunctional, can serve as access control, can serve as video, can serve as intrusion, and if you have it unified, the benefits are obvious. So you have one point where you have all the information available. You don't need to update the firmware, you don't need to update the product simultaneously, and you don't need to train your people in 3 systems. You just need to train them at one system which is capable of providing functionality from 3 systems in other setup. So that's something that we do believe in Genetec. I don't want to talk too much about Genetec because it was about the industry, not the Genetec. So just one slide. Our unified platform is Security Center Omnicast, which is video. It is Synergis, which is access control, and it's AutoView, which is ANPR or ALPR solution, both hardware and software. And this is part of the same on the same software. So this is what we call unification. But as I said, if you want to hear more about it, feel free to reach me later. 5 minutes left, so let me finish this presentation part. Thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them now. And if we cannot do it now, offline and later as well. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Jakub. Dziękuję bardzo. We have 2 questions.
Dziękuję.
If you have time, if you can answer 2 questions that we actually received. If our dear spectators have more questions, you can always ask it inside the virtual halls. But these 2 questions are right for you. I hope they're not too hard because you know everything about the industry. Should the security industry plan ahead with the pandemic in mind be prepared for its effects for the long run, or is it take the money and bye-bye?
That's a very good question. You know, it's if I know answer to that, I would be millionaire, and perhaps I wouldn't be here with you guys. Although it's very pleasant thing to do. But I don't know. You know, when we talk about long run, it's so basically difficult to predict what will happen in the market. What I can say, and it was also part of the question, the solution should be designed bearing long run in mind. Yeah? So it should be scalable, it should be flexible. So, you know, 3 years ago, if someone tells us about pandemic and that kids would not go to school, we would simply not believe. Yeah, and that was the reality. So as our laptops at home and our network infrastructure at home had to adapt quickly, because if you have 2 kids, you need strong network now, because you need 4 or 3 computers, not 1, and exactly the same for the security system. So I would suggest that we design systems bearing in mind the flexibility, the scalability. We balance the load of the solution, no matter if it's access control or video, in a way that we don't use from the beginning 100%. If the system is designed that normally we use 50% of the capacity, and if something happens like COVID, then we go to 100. Then it's fine. If we already start during business as usual from 100, then we have an issue if something unusual happens. So that's something clear. And I would say that the world will not be the same. Yeah. So basically the industry will have to change. Will have to adapt. Will have to be flexible. But in which direction it will go? Hopefully we'll get back to normal, and next pandemic will be in 100 years. But no one knows that.
So it's a marathon with more refresh points than usual. So yes. The last question I have, it's quite a short one because we are out of time. So what do you think? Are the solutions from scratch or modified of the existing solutions something which will help us combat the pandemic?
I would say modification is the quickest way. So it should be done first. But why not to go simultaneously? Yeah? So let's try to utilize what we have already, as we did with those thermal cameras or with access control. But let's try to invent something that we don't have now. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, we started curing COVID patients with existing drugs, but I read in news that they are working on a new one completely as well, in addition to the vaccination. So it's a good parallel, I think. Yeah, we should go simultaneously in those 2 directions.
So we walk together in this part, the new game players and the old industry guys. Thank you so much, Jakub, for joining us. Hope to see you soon live in Sarajevo or some other parts of the Central Europe. Do widzenia.
Do widzenia. Thank you very much.